Now we're going to look in detail at the recommended procedure for terminating Pyro 10-ax cable. In order to explain the basic principles of terminating, we're going to look at a 20mm standard termination. The techniques involved are common throughout the range, although they vary slightly depending upon the type of seal or the number of conductors. Written installation instructions are available for any BICC Pyro 10-ax seals on request. A complete termination consists of a shroud, compression gland and seal. Whilst a seal must always be used, the compression gland and shroud are optional. For example, a compression gland would not be used with cable grip type terminal boxes. Let's now consider how these are fitted. It's advisable to cut the cable with a hacksaw, since this will later facilitate stripping the copper sheath. If the cable is plastic covered, then a plastic gland shroud will normally be used. This is best fitted by offering it up to the cable in reverse. It's then simple to determine the amount to cut off, thereby ensuring a tight fit over the cable. The shroud can then be slid over the cable in the correct fashion. The next stage is to remove the plastic covering. Mark the covering to the correct tail length, plus an additional 70mm to allow for the gland. This additional length will vary depending upon the gland size. From this point, remove the plastic covering with a knife. Don't use the edge of the blade at right angles to the cable, as this may damage the copper sheath. After removing the plastic covering, the copper sheath is stripped back. In this case, we will use the joy stripper. In order to remove the correct amount of copper sheath, mark off the tail length plus 11mm, point A. This additional amount will again vary depending upon the seal size. Add a second mark, point B, a further 1 tool's width along the cable. Insert the cable into the joy stripper tool until the end just touches the cutting blade. Beginning with forward pressure, rotate the tool clockwise. Forward pressure is not required once stripping has begun, since the tool will pull itself along the cable. Stop the tool at the required position A by gripping the cable with pliers at position B. The gland should now be slid onto the cable. It consists of 3 parts, a back nut, compression ring and gland body. The seal can now be fitted. This comprises a brass pot, plastic stub cap, PVC insulating sleeving and grey sealing compound. The pot has a self-cutting thread, which enables it to be screwed onto the cable, using pliers, a pyro potter, or, as in this case, a pyro wrench. Insert the pot, open end first, into the pyro wrench recess. Slide over the cable until the self-cutting thread is in contact with the cable sheath. Engage the ratchet wheel into the knurled section of the pot. Applying forward pressure and a cranking action, screw the pot onto the cable. This section through a seal illustrates the correct position of the pot, with the inside base level with the end of the cable. Incorrect positioning of the pot will make it difficult to fill with compound. If the pot has an earth wire, position it equidistant from 2 adjacent conductors. After fitting the brass pot, examine the interior, beware of eye damage from the exposed conductors, and remove any loose insulant. Slide the stub cap over the conductors and into the mouth of the pot to preform the conductors. Then partially withdraw it. The pot should now be filled with grey sealing compound. It's essential that this compound covers the face of the cable, thus effectively sealing the end, and hence preventing the insulant from absorbing moisture. This can be achieved by overfilling the pot with compound from one side only to exclude air pockets. Care should be taken to avoid contamination of the sealing compound, so use the plastic wrapping to keep it clean. Reposition the stub cap in the mouth of the pot. Don't let it overlap the edge of the pot, since this will damage the thin brass lip during crimping. 2 types of tool are available for crimping the disc into place. We shall use the Pyro crimp. Fully slacken the hollow drive screw by means of the handle. Slide the conductors through the hole in the crimping plate and through the centre of the drive screw. Place the pot into the seating in the body of the tool. Tighten the screw by hand, which will drive the stub cap fully into the pot recess, and secure it into position by means of the indent crimp. Slacken and remove the tool. Cut the stub sleeving to the required length. Slide it over the conductors and then push it onto the stub to anchor it in place. Identify the conductors. Connect the gland into the box, ensuring that the nut is sufficiently tightened to grip the cable. If the covering has been selected because the cable is being used in a corrosive environment, then any exposed copper sheath and brass gland must be covered with adhesive tape before positioning the gland shroud. The termination is now complete.